APP one. Alderman Ruth Simmons, could you move that one, please?
Yes. APP 1, approval of appointments to the Citizen Police Review Commission. The mayor recommends City Council approval of the appointments of Jamal Graham, Blanca Lowell, Rick Marsh, Shauna Richmond, Nico Ross, Janitha Shambi, Naika Strickland, Clarence Weaver, Douglas Whitmore to the Citizen Police Review Commission. This is for action.
Second.
Okay. So this is open for discussion. Alderman Fleming.
Yeah, as much as I want this commission to work, I'm a no for two reasons. One is what the gentleman spoke of earlier. I know that it's not necessarily a rule suggested, I think, on this time, but I think 4 or 5 of the citizens are from the 2nd ward. And while the 9th ward is represented, I do think that we need to just do a better job of having more ward representation. Living in one ward and working in another, in my mind, doesn't necessarily mean you're able to represent fairly the ward that you're working in. And then my other concern is one of the members, was paid by the city in another manner. And I think that's the same concern I had with someone else on another board and commission. So I just think we need to be clear about conflicts of interest.
Thank you. Alderman Wilson.
Thank you. I support this, and I am appreciative of the, and I'll apologize for the noise in the background, but it's a really good list and it's an interesting list. And while, for example, there isn't a person who lives in the 4th ward, what I was looking for in this representation is, do these individuals have experience in the areas that they're going to be working in? Is it multi-generational? Is it diverse? And are the individuals that are going to be doing this work going to fairly represent my ward and my community as a whole? And I usually look at those two things as the same. I feel like this list does. I think that anytime you compile a list of individuals to do something, it's inevitable that maybe 1 or 2 might make any given one of us feel uncomfortable, whether it's just for lack of knowledge about the person or lack of information or whatever the reasons might be. But I think that what we should be trying to do is to push ourselves. So if we are a little bit uncomfortable, I think that's how we should feel. I think we should be looking at the purpose of this commission, and in looking at the individuals and the qualifications and the experience and the different aspects of diversity, I think that it reflects that a lot of work went into this. You see people working in a wide range of jobs, living in different neighborhoods, and ward boundaries are, I happen to be in one of the most contiguous, as far as the, generally a rectangle. But I think that the people on this list, I feel very confident that they will fairly represent the community that I represent, and I feel good about this, so I support it.
Thank you, Alderman Nguyen, and then we'll go to Alderman Rainey.
Yes, I do support this list, and I did want to address that concern from one of the speakers that there wasn't someone from the 3rd ward, but I think Alderman Wilson has said what I was going to say, which is that, I do think that if we're going to, sometimes when we strain to find that kind of someone from every ward, you miss choosing someone who might be a better contributor to the committee or the board. So I think I've checked on all of these people. Some of them I know and have worked with on other committees. But I think that this is as Don said, this is a good list. And I will say, Mayor, when we heard that you had 90 applicants, I will say at Equity and Empowerment, we decided to data mine that list immediately, saying if they were interested in this, then let's look at some of these people for equity and empowerment. So I will support this.
Absolutely, Alderman. To that point, Kimberly Richardson, who helps with committees, is doing that. And we mentioned all these people that we couldn't select that for other openings that we have, you know, we're going to for them if they're interested. So let's see, Alderman Rainey.
Yes, I agree with both speakers. These people are really qualified, and I was very impressed. I don't know most of them. I know 2 or 3 of them, but the others were just excellent. But I want to know how you decided 1 year, 2 year, 3 year terms.
Yeah, alphabetical.
Really?
That's all I did. I went 1, 2, and 3, and I just took it alphabetically. That's how they were all selected for that. Yep.
Interesting. Okay.
Yay, the W's finally come out on top for once.
There you go. Alderman Fisk.
Oops. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, I've been struggling with this a little bit because I do think that representation from all wards really does matter, and I think it enlarges almost an educational point of view that we have an investment in addressing these issues as a city. And I put in 4 names, and none of my names were picked, but that's okay. I respect the fact that this is the mayor's choice, and but I'm just a little bit disappointed, and I guess I would encourage us to maybe add a few more folks, because I don't think it needs to be quite as small as it is, and it just means that more people can be involved. Now, the folks in my ward who were not selected, I have encouraged them to attend the meetings and participate. I'm assuming there will be citizen comment and an opportunity for everyone to be heard, but it's not the same as having somebody actually in the seat and selected. So that was a little bit difficult for me in conversations that I had with folks who are very interested in applying.
Let's see, Alderman Ruth Simmons.
Thank you. So I agree with the comments that it's a great list, and I'm confident that they all will represent fairly, but it's not a fair representation of the city. And I think I have said on multiple occasions that we should have some process. I know that others on council has talked about having a process, a system, a mandate on how many from each ward or what background we have on these committees. So I'm concerned. I know that I have one very strong recommendation, a voice that I think would be valuable in this committee. And I think we could have maybe even taken more time. It's difficult because this is a good list, but we're certainly going to get concerns and pushback from the community on some areas not being represented. So I would like to ask, would you be open to adding more to this list? Is there any reason, is there any policy that says it has to be whatever this number is?
Are you asking me?
I'm asking you.
Yes.
I'm sorry?
I don't know. Somebody jumped in and said something.
I think Kimberly said yes.
Yes. Well, okay. So where I was going to go is, so how we got here is that, if you all remember, we had before this, we had an organization or a commission called CPAC. And we then had a task force that went out there and looked at our entire complaint process. They looked at how CPAC was organized, and they looked at other municipalities around the country, and they came back and gave us a report. And that was to the whole city council. And that report said you should have 9 members of this board, which is typical for lots of our other boards in terms of 9. And I do think as you get larger and larger, they can get a little unwieldy. I talked to, because I was concerned about, does somebody need to represent every single ward? That's unusual. We don't have that, to my knowledge, on any of these other committees here in the city. And the old one did have that here for the old CPAC. And the committee report itself, and I talked to the chair, who was Matthew Mitchell, said CPAC or the Citizen Police Complaint Assessment Committee, which was this task force, specifically did not recommend that the new civilian police commission have members that need to be representing each individual ward. Rather, the recommendation was, and this is quote from their report, strong consideration should be given to applicants' character and experience rather than specific professional education or residency in a given ward. There should be an emphasis on creating a board representing the diversity of the community. SCPE-CAC, so this task force specifically discussed whether each ward should have representation and chose to not restrict the process in that way. I do see how people could read, and a couple of folks of the public comment who I've gone back and forth with and some emails as well, read and said, no, the ordinance is clear. They have to be from all wards. So I could see how that misunderstanding could be, but again, you read the report here. So I don't know. To me, I think it's a good group of people. It was a tough decision. Let me tell you. I mean, lots of people, met all the criteria that we were looking for. It's never easy putting all these boards together sort of from scratch. But Alderman Wilson, do you have something?
No, I wasn't done with my comment.
Okay.
I didn't read their bios completely, but is one of these appointments a member of Citizen Network of Protection?
No.
Just seems appropriate based on how committed and how long they've been paying attention to this matter, that we would have one of them represented on this committee.
Yeah, I didn't get them there. But Alderman Braithwaite.
Thank you. In looking through the list, I would agree. I know probably maybe 4 folks, and I think it's a very diverse list. And maybe just as a point of information, so this committee makes a recommendation to Human Services that Alderman, Ravel, Simmons, Fisk, and Fleming. And so for the members of the public that are still on, when we get a complaint from anywhere, 9 times out of 10, and I may be overreacting, that it's probably someone coming from either the 2nd, 5th, probably the 9th, wherever you have a concentration of Black folks. And I don't want to make that blanket statement, but that's just the reality. So before I even see this complaint, I've already heard from a resident if they've had a negative interaction with the police. So they make a recommendation to Human Services. That's going to be a public meeting. Human Services then has an opportunity to review it. That's another public meeting. And then it still comes to City Council for final approval. So that's the process that we're going through. And that process really hasn't changed. So I guess a little bit surprised. No, I take that back. I shouldn't be surprised. I shouldn't be surprised with the interest, but the process has always been the same, where at the end of the day, it's going to come to Human Services and all this information is public. So with all due respect to the other wards, I mean, just like any other committee, this thing is going to rotate. Doug Whitmore, who's a resident of the 5th Ward, who's lived there forever, a former state trooper, Clarence Weaver, who owns a business, Janitha Shambian, attorney, Nico Ross, relative to Alderman Holmes. I mean, in 1 year, this list is going to rotate, folks. So I see no reason to hold it up. And I would encourage anyone who wants to get involved to hopefully find another committee. And if you want to email me, I can give you a list of them if your concern is having an impact on the Black community.
Alderman Wilson, do you have anything?
Alderman Braithwaite, I think you covered much of what I wanted to, address. But, the bottom line is that we want to address an impact on a particular population. And I think that this list is tailored towards doing that.
Wait, what did we get? Oh, that's good, right?
So, I thought he was talking to me. That's one of the things I'm looking at here. So we have a goal that we're trying to achieve, and that's what this list does. You know, I don't have to know personally every single person on this list. I don't expect to know every single person on this list. I don't want to have the usual people that are on every board and commission who volunteers for everything that we see. I want new people who are interested in getting engaged, and I want people who are committed to accomplishing these goals. And it seems like this group really fits that. And I hope we can support this. There's absolutely nothing wrong with this list. And as Alderman Braithwaite pointed out, every year new people are going to come in, and that's going to be an opportunity for a lot of people to participate.
Every year.
All right, Alderman Fisk.
Well, I want to pick up on Alderman Ruth Simmons' comment and her question to you, Mr. Mayor. You had sent us an email asking at some point for us to make suggestions for folks to serve on the committee, and I took that seriously and went out and talked to people that I thought would be not only interested but qualified, and encouraged them to apply, and they did. And then, of course, they didn't get it and were wondering why. So I don't know. Maybe we want to rethink that a little bit, because that left, at least me, in kind of a difficult position. But to repeat Alderman Rusiman's question, is there any room in here for an additional 2 or 3 members on the committee, or are you really?
What I would suggest, I mean, it's not really, in my opinion, it's not really my decision in terms of the size. It's all of our decisions. It's a rules committee item that would have to go there that says, hey, we want to consider changing the size of different committees. And so that's where that happens. The ordinance exists right now and says 9. So my suggestion would be we move forward with a vote on these 9, and then somebody can refer, if they want, to the rules committee, a discussion about whether we revise this ordinance, or to increase the size, or to put a specific requirement that there has to be 1 representative from each ward. Resides in the ward, doesn't work in the ward, whatever you want to do.
Okay, I would feel comfortable with that. I don't know about Alderman Ruth Simmons, but I would feel comfortable about making that referral to the Rules Committee.
So is it right now all committees have a max of 9, or this one is in?
All committees have their own. You're correct. All committees have their own min and max. And it does have an impact on quorum. So I think if you're going to open this up to this committee, then let's open it up to preservation. Let's open it up to zoning. Let's open it up to MWEBE, and then the list goes on. And so I would move that we vote, and then we'll have a discussion at Rules Committee. But not just on this. Open it up to every single one of them.
I mean, I was just asking questions. You seem really agitated, Alderman Braithwaite. I just was trying to understand it right. Like, let's not.
I was speaking more to. I'm sorry. I was speaking. No, Alderman Simmons. I was speaking directly to Alderman Fisk, not to you.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'm just trying to find a way I can support, because right now I can't. And
I'm trying to do the same.
I asked the question.
I want to move it. I have a lot of respect for everybody that's on this list. I think, as everyone has stated, they would do a fair job, but I'm just uncomfortable with the list. I'm uncomfortable with the process, and I would like to expand it. And I don't know, I don't want to hold up the work, but I'm stuck. So, I mean, I guess you have your votes either way it goes, but.
Alderman Nguyen. Alderman Nguyen?
Yes. I understand the concerns of Alderman Fisk and Alderman Ruth Simmons. I would say that getting to occasionally we've had a committee above the size of 9, then you have to jump to 11 if you do that. And, that I'm not necessarily opposed to that, but I do think that 9 seems to be a very good working committee number. Over time, if we just look at our committees that have that number of people on it, I think if you drop it lower, then you have quorum issues. If you go higher, then it gets a little unwieldy. That's just my view on committee size. I do think we should discuss this more at rules. With respect to Alderman Fisk, I think I realize that this might have put you in an awkward position with some of your constituents, but my understanding is 90 people applied. So, I think that for those 4, the response would be we had 90 applicants. And I think that's probably more than we've ever had, even for our the Climate Action Committee, which also was just, it also overflowed with, that list overflowed with really talented people. So I think I see Alderman Rainey's hands up, but I think we should vote on this and then discuss it more at rules, because we do want to have this in place. I think we're going to get stuck trying to decide, should it be 2 more people, or I don't think it should be any more than 11. I mean, then you're really talking about a really difficult size committee.
Thank you, Alderman Rainey.
I'm going to argue that we leave it at 9, and here's why. Because right now at 9, in 1 year, 3 people will be replaced. In 2 years, 6 people will be replaced, because the 3 that are serving 1 year will again be replaced. The 3 that are serving for 2 years will be replaced. In 3 years, all of the committee will be replaced. So if you add more people, you're going to have enormous numbers of people being replaced, and you don't really want that. So I would suggest we leave it at this and make sure that you get a waiting list developed so that in 1 year, 3 new people will be placed on the board, and then in another year, 6 new people will be on the board. But to not have a quorum on something as important as deciding these kinds of decisions that this committee is going to make is really, would be really unfortunate. So you want to have a quorum, and more than 9 people is hard to get a quorum, especially with people like this who aren't the same old that we recycle through all sorts of committees. We don't know how these people are going to serve. We're hoping that they'll do well, but
Just
anyway,
so
that's fine.
Thank you.
So I keep hearing that these are brand new people, and I don't know everyone's history, but I know at least 2 of them are currently on committees appointed at this time. So I just want to say that because I keep hearing that they're brand new.
Well, I only know 2 people too, so.
Okay. But either way, I guess you said you're confident with your appointments, and we're going to move on.
I mean, it's no different than any other board or commission, right? I mean, we put forward the appointments, and you all have the power to vote on them. So nothing.
But it's not the same, because most committees are either 4 years or 6 years, so it takes a long time to get somebody off.
That is
Okay. All right. Just so everybody's clear on this, because the way the ordinance, I think, reads that this council adopted, it's you could serve up to 2 terms. So the way that 1, 2, and 3 works is the 1 year means that next year they're up for either reappointment or reappoint somebody else. Whoever
Right.
the mayor appoints somebody else at that point.
Mhm.
Okay. All right. Seeing no more hands up, City Clerk, you take the roll on appointments, the approval of appointments to the Citizen Police Review Commission.
Yes, Mayor Hagerty, I'm sorry. Just based on Alderman Ruth Simmons' comments, is it possibly a clarification from the law department? There's, I believe I've read a rule that you can only serve on 1 committee at a time. You're not allowed to.
That's correct. If we have somebody on a committee, they're going to have to, and they get onto this committee, they have to be off that other committee.
But wouldn't we have them not be appointed to this committee then if they're on another one?
The only one that I'm aware of is, and I became aware of this sort of late in the process, is Janitha Shambi, who I didn't know, and it wasn't in her application, is on Meepy Weeby. So I talked to her and she said, I really want to be on this committee. I was interested in her for this committee because she is a sole proprietor attorney that does criminal defense and civil defense work, which I think is important. And so she would resign from that other committee. That's the only one I'm aware of. Rick Marsh did the temporary committee, but it's not, that's completed its work. That was the compensation committee.
I don't think, just as a quick aside, I mean, given the fact that 90 people applied for this, the likelihood that someone was going to get on and that they would resign from another committee where they're already serving, where we need them, I don't want them to do that. I want them to wait to see if they made this committee, and then we'll say, you're going to have to resign from the other one. And it sounds like they're
care of that. That's not going to be a problem now.
right.
So let's move on.
All right. So City Clerk, you take the roll, please.
So then, the committee that Mr. Marsh is on is
Oh,
that one.
that's done. That's done because that was the report today. The compensation committee. That was
Okay.
just like a 4-month committee task force.
Okay. That can be sent back to committee, just to her point.
No, that is going to the rules committee. In fact, I got to clean something up after. But no, that committee is done. Its work is done. It's disbanded.
Okay. Alderman Sufferton.
No.
Alderman Ravel.
Aye.
Alderman Rainey.
Aye.
Alderman Fleming.
No.
Alderman Fisk.
No.
Alderman Nguyen.
Aye.
Alderman Wilson. Oh, he muted, but I think you said aye.
He's muted.
I'm sorry. It says I'm unmuted. Okay, aye.
And then Alderman Ruth Simmons.
No.
Did you call Alderman Braithwaite?
I'm sorry, Alderman Braithwaite, if I did not.
Aye.
All right. So the appointments for the Citizen Police Review Commission passes on a 5-4 vote. All right. We've got to move now to